Now that you have packed away the Christmas ornaments and Chrismons for the season, it's time for some contemplation. Those Chrismons are from the 80s. They're made of styrofoam. The glitter has dropped off and they're being held together with toothpicks. Don't celebrate another Christmas harkening back to the age of glitter balls. See Ad Crusim's beautifully designed Christmons, together with our book describing how they fit into the church year. Visit adcrusim.com. That's ADCRUCEM.com.
You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin. I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
All right, buckle in, ladies. We have adventures in quasi-Lutheranism today. Lutheranism question mark? It's more like adventures in Christian culture, which ended up in Lutheranism.
90s edition.
90s edition. So this is a shout out to all you 90s kids.
Woot,
Anybody
woot.
that,
Raise the
that
roof.
was alive in the 90s, you will resonate with this probably today.
I hope so.
So
really-
I'm quite excited for this. I love talking about my childhood. So Bree, take it away.
All right. So I have to give this disclaimer because with the way that this show ends up, it's going to be a very interesting turn of events. I need to give a little bit of background to why I react to this the way that I do.
Mm-hmm.
I have a ton of emotional baggage about growing up. And so a lot of my upbringing sort of colors this experience. So I'm going to say some things today. I think I'm the reason Sarah has to be like, views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran because of me. It just is. So I just want to be clear. I'm going to say some things today that probably don't resonate with people my parents' age, but I'm not here to criticize anybody who think like my parents did and do, or that you parent your kids the way that my parents parented me. So let's just get that out of the way.
We are not criticizing parenting in this episode.
No, we don't mom shame in this.
This is
this place.
This is an exposition on Christian
Correct.
culture as it was in the 90s.
Correct. I'm just giving my little context. So I grew up in a very politically conservative household, and even though we abided by the beliefs, teachings, and confessions of the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod, there were a lot of facets in my childhood that I don't really have a palatable way to describe it other than, and even this is not palatable, it's American fundamentalist Judeo-Christian tradition. And so let's unpack that a little bit, right? I grew up being encouraged to engage in only the quote-unquote good Christian parts of American culture because the rest of it was sort of going to hell in a handbasket, right? So we saw things growing up, and I'm sure it happens now, like cultural fads, Harry Potter, Pokemon. Like, remember when Jerry Falwell had a problem with the Teletubbies? Like, do you remember that?
Tinky Winky's purse.
Yes. So
It's a man bag.
yeah, like,
Oh,
okay, like pick your spots, brother. But anyway, there was a lot of that. And in my childhood, I can understand parents wanting to protect their kids from bad, evil things. But there are some things reflecting on my childhood that I was not allowed to do that are just downright absurd. So, like, I was not allowed to watch the Care Bears or Captain Planet because my parents referred to it as New Age, and it was a gateway to the occult. So, like,
Yeah.
I could never watch those shows. Do I think I missed out upon reflection of this?
No.
But it was just a strange nuance in growing up. And so I, over the course of my young life, ingested a lot of alternative Christian resources, even at church. So it's not like Lutheran communities haven't also fallen into this practice. I remember going to Sunday school one day, and there was a Christian theater troupe that was presenting. I was in 3rd grade, and that's when the Power Rangers were like really popular.
Yes.
And they were the Christian Power Rangers. They were called the Praise Rangers.
That is amazing.
I have thoughts about it. But anyway, you had things like Bibleman, which is basically a Marvel superhero, but it's Bibleman. You had things like Wow, the Wow album instead of the Now. That's what I call music album. You had McGee and Me.
Okay, stop right there. That's some quality entertainment. Do not say a word against McGee and Me.
It's the good stuff. You're absolutely right.
That hammer.
This show is not about that, so I just want to stop it right there. So I could go on.
Could we just pause for a minute? Just before, and I really want to go on to the main content of this, but just having lived through all of that 90s Christian subculture alongside you, a little bit older than you probably, and now as the parent of teens and tweens myself, I get it in a way that I did not before.
Oh, I'm sure.
Because there is so much trash out there. And I just want to lock it all out. And I just want to say, here, have this instead. This thing that might draw you closer to God instead of further away from God. And I did, when I was a younger adult, I had a lot of cynicism. I made a lot of fun at all this sort of stuff. And now as a parent, I understand.
Yeah,
and I'm like, bring back the Wow CD. I will pay money for that.
Bring back Bible Man.
But it's interesting how different seasons in your life provide different layers of understanding and empathy. For things that we went through. So that's why I'm very excited for what you're going to talk about today. Back to you, Brie.
We're going to discuss one cultural keystone alternative Christian resource that was very present in my life growing up as a young girl. And that was Brio magazine.
Yes.
Now, for the uninitiated, this is what Brio magazine is. This is a Christian magazine geared towards a tween and teen girl readership. To be clear, this is why it's kind of quasi-Lutheran-ish. This is not a Lutheran publication. It's put out by Focus on the Family. They do have resources that many of our LCMS congregations and families use. But just understand, if you finish listening to this podcast episode today and you're interested in finding out more, just know that there's going to be some you're going to read some potential theological missteps because this is not a Lutheran publication.
You mean Brio magazine did not go through LCMS doctrinal review?
We should put a Brio through LCMS doctrinal review and see what happens. I don't know. Let's just do it and see what happens.
That would be an adventure in Lutheranism.
That's an adventure. Yeah, absolutely. Now, I would describe Brio magazine as like the alternative Christian resource to like 17 Magazine, Teen Vogue, Elle, all of which are hot garbage fires of their own making, which like is another story for another time. And Rachel, in your case, I would not let my kids read those.
No.
Like,
no, they're like Cosmo with lip gloss.
Well, Cosmo Girl is Cosmo with lip gloss.
All right, but they're sort of in the same category. Like, I wish I was Cosmo. My mom won't let me buy Cosmo, so I'll buy 17.
Gross. Like, come on, don't be gross, guys. This is sick. But like, okay, I will make one admission. In the 17 magazine, I always read the Trauma Rama section, which is when girls would write in and admit their foibles and mistakes and misgivings that happened to them in the course of their teenage life.
Oh boy.
And I'm glad I'm not the only 8th grader that ripped a juicy fart in front of their crush by accident. So that's cool. It was very hashtag help women helping women.
Building community.
Right, that's right. So Brio magazine is how I got my quote unquote teenage girl magazine fix. Obviously, in the household in which I grew up, I didn't really have the other options to choose from.
Good. I like your parents.
Right.
Good job, Mom and Dad.
So this, I think, is where, Rachel, you and I have sort of felt the same thing. So I grew to resent that upbringing. I grew to resent stuff like this unironically because of previously referenced emotional baggage. Just a few final details before we dive in. Brio magazine was a print publication from 1990 to 2009, but it experienced a resurgence of print in 2017.
Yes.
So I have in front of me
you don't.
the November-December 2021 edition of Brio magazine. I'm going to turn the pages so you can hear it. It's right here in my hands.
Some quality stock that they printed it on.
Yeah,
You
it is.
hear it over the microphone.
Not flimsy. Delicious. Not at all. And we'll dive more deeply into this, but I'm not gonna mince words. This magazine that I read, it's either not the Brio magazine I remember, or I've matured spiritually. Probably a little bit of both. But in the short couple of weeks that I've had this magazine on my person, I have read it cover to cover 2 times, and the magazine gets my almost full endorsement.
Wow.
So
that is not how I expected this to go.
This is also not how I expected this to go. Let me just tell you.
It's a plot twist. Major plot twist.
Where's M. Night Shyamalan right now?
Not in Brio magazine, I'll betcha.
Right. I'm going to wake up tomorrow and look in the mirror and be my mom.
Happens to the best of us.
So I don't want to talk about too much of it at length, only because, well, not only because, but I really don't want to spoil the fun. And if you're a mom of tween age and teenage girls, I would highly recommend you look into this resource for your girls. And also, I don't want to violate any copyright things. So I won't read it to you.
I would have to edit all of that out.
So I'm just going to give you guys just a really brief rundown, the good, the bad, the ugly. I do want to make it abundantly clear that there was some not so great things that I read or sort of perceived, which we will get into. But by far, by and large, the good outweighs the bad and the ugly. So I just want to make that abundantly clear. Okay. So the good. This publication obviously is Bible-based. It's Christ-focused. It's Christ-centered. There are just throughout, like in different ads in different places in the margins, they have Bible verses just printed. A selection of these that I spotted off the bat are 1 Thessalonians 5:16 through 18, Ephesians 2:10, Joshua 1:9, Romans 15:13, and that's hardly the tip of the iceberg. There are Bible reading plans that can guide the reader's study of the Word, and there are probably 2 or 3 opportunities for you to reflect on different readings in the Bible. There's like places to write and prompts and just opportunities for you to reflect. This is a tremendously encouraging publication. It speaks words to teen girls that they so desperately need to hear and that they're not currently hearing, regardless of their upbringing or who they are or demographics. There are phrases weaving throughout the magazine, things like, God's got this. You are worthy. You are beautiful. You are enough. God calls his this one hit me right in the neck. God calls his creation good, and your body is good. Your maker knit you together in your mother's womb to be seen as more than an object.
Ooh.
My
Wow.
Mic drop. That's when I threw down the magazine and I'm like, all right, I'm sold.
That is like the exact opposite of what Instagram is telling young women.
Absolutely.
Which is like all over the news
17
right now.
ain't. No disrespect to 17, but they ain't saying this.
You are not going to find that in there.
No, ma'am. And, in addition to the biblical references and the words of encouragement, there's actually quite a diverse array of topics that are relevant to Gen Zers, relevant to Christian Gen Zers, relevant to Christian Gen Z girls, or really just any Christian lady.
So do you mean to say that, like, the young woman living with me in my house might actually find this interesting enough to pick up and read?
That's correct. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, boy.
I'm listening.
So get this. Here's a brief overview of some of the content that I encountered in this magazine. There was a very interesting topic on body positivity and counteracting the media and body positivity as a Christian. We've covered that topic. Love that topic. There are a few features on young Christian women and what they are doing in the world to help change it, and to tell others about Jesus. There is tips on how to be a positive influence in school, ways to encourage your friends. There's an article that talks about bridging generational divides, understanding male peers who are also growing and maturing. But in addition to that, what are some characteristics and misconduct that a cute boy could do that's kind of a non-starter if he asked you to the prom? You know what I mean? Like, if he's not gonna be a cool Christ-like dude, like, why would you even waste your time, basically? So it covers a wide array of serious topics as well, like coping with homelessness, coping with being in a newly blended family, like how to deal with your step siblings, how to deal with mental health conditions as a young adult. But then there's also like stuff that you would see in a typical teen girl magazine, advice columns, fashion trends, crafts and DIY ideas, quizzes, excerpts from new young adult fiction. This thing's got it all, guys. It's fantastic. It's all good stuff. There wasn't stuff there weren't articles where I'm like, this is boring. Next. Like, it was just all good, right?
After doing that episode on the Walther League, this reminds me of a girls only version of The Messenger that isn't actually Lutheran. But this is the same kind of stuff that has been in young people magazines for like 100 years, which is kind of cool.
Love it. Now, it's not 100%, as we see with all media. And so with these next couple of admonitions, I would just say, treat this, like, just be present in your kid's life, guys. Like, no matter what they read, like, talk to them about it and help them think critically and point them to Christ. Okay? Thanks. That's my admonition to you all moms out there.
Even with this magazine.
So here's sort of a couple of the things that just didn't really sit well with me. Talking about the body positivity article that I referenced earlier in specific, sometimes the publication falls a victim to the very things that are denounced in its messaging. So, for example, in the body positivity and the media article, this is a direct quote. Photo editing is a standard practice in the advertising industry. They slim a woman's waistline, smooth her bulges, widen her eyes, and polish her skin to perfection. And it's not like they're doing this to Shrek's ogre wife, Fiona. No, they fix women and girls who have already been deemed attractive. And to that I say, leave Fiona out of this. She is a beautiful queen. Do not hate on Fiona.
Yeah, and that's a useful criticism to point out, because that paragraph, and of course we're hearing it out of context, that paragraph makes it sound like it's fine to Photoshop somebody who's ugly, according to the world. It's just when they do it on people who are already pretty that it's stupid. No,
Right.
photoshopping anyone out of the body that they've been given is
Or animated to have.
been given, earned, whatever. Like your body tells your story. And to Photoshop the body, I'm glad that they're pointing out that photoshopping is bad. But to say that it's okay for Fiona, but not for like Cameron Diaz.
Right.
You're right. That's
Who voiced Fiona? Oh, I see what you did there.
You're welcome.
That got really meta.
It really did, didn't it? And then finally, I did spot a couple of red flags, which you may not see. You may just brush past it. I do think there are assumptions that can be drawn from the messaging, the wording they use, the photos that they use, which could actually just simply be avoided if those photos were used differently or the sentences were reworded, or the concepts or the thoughts were reworded. I personally think, after reading this entire magazine, that there are sexist undertones throughout, which, I mean, is not necessarily surprising to me. I spotted a couple of what I thought to be sort of dog whistles for purity culture and the modesty movement, which are not bad in and of themselves, to be clear, but studies have shown that they can be problematic. Those things, that's a topic for another episode. Let's keep it light, basically, is all I'm saying right now. There were a few references that sort of suggested that what you as an individual wear, what you put on your body, can cause problems for yourself and others, which, okay, I can kind of see that. But at the same time, you need to hold others accountable for their actions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think the responsibility is shared there.
Yes.
I mean, it would not be responsible for you to walk into the office in a string bikini, nor would it be responsible for somebody else to look at you and judge you based on that. So there have been problems in the past with blaming women for things that were not their fault because of this.
Correct. And that's the slippery slope that you begin to ride when you say stuff like that. Another point is there was some, like, they don't like screens at Brio magazine, I don't think. Like, there was an article about living a tech-wise life, and it was basically this girl that just sort of bragged about how she was never on her phone and doesn't use technology like her peers do, and that somehow
makes her a better
person. And I'm like, okay, you're talking to a bunch of people who probably do the very things that you're denouncing. If you're going to say how good it is to not use social media or screens, like, what sort of tips and techniques and tricks do you do to sort of wean yourself off of it? Like, if it's that bad, let's not just talk about the problem. Let's talk about solutions, people.
How to replace that with something else. We've talked about this.
Yes.
Replacing
we're going to talk about it again.
That's right.
Yes. Yes.
And seriously, it is a message because, the kids growing up today do not know what life is like without screens in it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so to have someone show them, hey, it's okay. You can actually survive using them very little or not at all. Like, that's a message that would be, I think, very refreshing to the kids today who maybe, I can speak from experience, they're as addicted as anybody else.
Sure.
Maybe more so. But they, too, feel that world weariness that comes. Yeah.
For sure. And then just two other things kind of related to each other. It seems like you have to fit a certain and at the same time truly unattainable mold to be a leader. So there was a quiz. There was a quiz in this magazine called Are You a Leader?
Did you take it?
I didn't. You want me to
Twice.
take it?
What?
I didn't take it. I read it. I'm taking
Why
it right
did you take
now.
it? What she took?
I didn't take the quiz. I just read
This is
it.
even better. I'm glad
The
you
quizzes
didn't
were
take
the
it.
first things I always did in those
Oh, yeah.
magazines.
So we get
So
the live answers.
this is the one that threw me a little bit. This was the one that kind of made me. Ooh. So these are true false questions. Question 1. I stand firm in my Christian convictions.
Yes, you do. We'll take this on your behalf.
Like,
yes,
not
but
all the
you're an
time.
LCMS Lutheran,
Yes.
which means you're always like, but
yes,
Right.
exactly.
This is the problem.
This is why we're taking it for you. Yes, you do. Okay,
I believe I'm loved by God even when I make mistakes. That is true.
Yes.
Good.
Occasionally, my friends come to me for advice. That's false.
They come all
It depends
the
what
time.
the advice is for.
I go to them with the advice, and they didn't ask for it.
I don't go to anybody for advice. Stay out of my life.
Yeah, right. I admit my mistakes.
That's true.
Sometimes too freely.
That is
Too
true.
Very graciously.
Yes.
Very Lutheran.
Okay, here's the other one where I was like, ooh. I try to make others feel good about themselves.
I mean,
Yes, you absolutely do. My goodness.
But what if they're being trashy?
well, then they.
You know what I'm saying? Like this is
You mean like all the time?
this is
I
the
don't think it
classic
means
Lutheran
all the
overthink.
time.
Right?
Yeah.
Kids they could take this very literally. I don't always stand
So you
firm in
think
my
it's
Christian
too
convictions.
binary?
Obviously,
Yeah,
I'm
It's too black and white.
yeah.
So, like, if you have a dose of guilt, you're gonna think that you'll never
You're
be a
like more
leader.
like
So the
7.
quiz should be on a scale of 1 to
Out of
10,
10.
not true false.
Yes, moms, don't make it true
Mhm.
false, you guys.
Mhm.
True false is just hard.
Just average it out. So you're more than a 5, which means it's true.
I'm 80% a leader, guys.
That
It
means-
sounds like
You are
80%.
100% a leader, Brie.
I don't believe it.
LOL.
Quiz is
Oh.
wrong.
I see your point though, because when I was a kid and I would do all of those quizzes,
I
like,
exactly thought of
you would-
baby Sarah Golseth taking that quiz and being like, I'm not perfect at this.
Yes, but that's the thing. Like, if you have a kid that is going by what those things say,
Right.
and then you're like questioning yourself, and it does not go to a good place.
So, right. So is it an entirely bad quiz? Nah. This is where I think the parental guidance is helpful. Is this section here. And then there's one more kind of red flag that and that is in all of the features of young adult women, or maybe adult women or older adult women, the usage of photos basically implied that the picture of a successful Christian woman always has a husband and kids in it.
Mhm.
And as we know, that's not always the case. And so let's not imply that with the content we put out there. But I mean, they may really believe that that's true. And I disagree with that.
Well, and that's where we come down to differences in how we teach about vocation in our Lutheran church versus other Christian denominations, and the fact that having an ecumenical agreement, I don't know about agreement, having an ecumenical basis of where we share beliefs about how we live our lives as Christians, something like this is very useful to just have that edifying content of the word of God shared with you, and having things come from a Christian perspective. But yeah, there are those differences of how we approach things from our catechesis and how we teach things from our confessions, that a young person may or may not really understand those or even see them, but a parent with guidance will be able to kind of talk them through of like, this is maybe what this article is saying, but from our confessions, this is how we approach it as Lutherans.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
I do get the logic behind that editorial choice, as someone who's been in charge of selecting photos for a magazine, that they are consciously trying to counteract the culture around them that says these things are not important. We want to present an alternative, imaginative perspective and make sure that you see that this is normal, natural, good, despite what every other thing you'll be reading and seeing will tell you. And so, it is an incomplete picture of the church, but they've chosen the message that they feel is very important in our time and place for young women to come away with.
And to be fair, the other thing that's incomplete is my I read one issue
Right.
out of a 6 issues a year series. So I mean, surely you're supposed to jump, you can just jump in wherever you start, but at the same time, maybe they've built a culture that this is embraced and accepted already. There is an article about caffeine, Sarah. I think you should read it.
No, it's going to tell me to stop drinking it.
How much is okay?
Oh no, is there a quiz?
No.
Can I take the quiz?
But I will tell you how much caffeine is safe. Safe is the actual word they use.
Safe?
Yeah.
I am an
Ready?
unsafe caffeine user.
Ready? You don't have to say yes or no if you follow this, but we all know what the answer is.
Probably no.
Doctors recommend no more than 100 milligrams of caffeine a day for individuals 12 to 18 years old.
Oh, I am older than 18.
Yeah, you are. You
Doesn't apply to you at all.
loophole. That's
Yes.
1 cup or 8 fluid ounces of regular home brewed coffee, 2 cups of black tea, 2 soft drinks, or approximately 3.5 ounces of dark chocolate.
1 8-ounce cup of coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I drink 2 of those before I go to work, and then I bring some more with me.
Whoa.
I am not a safe caffeine user if I were 12 to 18 years old,
no,
but I'm
okay.
not. So.
No. It makes me wonder what the reasonable alternative is.
But see, I didn't drink caffeine when I was 12 to 18. I don't think I started drinking coffee until college, probably.
Yeah.
Also, one more really cool thing I want to say. So there is a creative... we should just make a magazine for girls.
We should.
A Lutheran one.
A Lutheran
It would be
magazine for
beautiful,
girls.
But look,
Okay.
we already do this. It's a feature called Creative Corner.
Hey,
And girls can submit their artwork and their writing.
I
that's
love it.
awesome.
And at the end of it, the editor says, "Thanks for your creative submissions."
That would be a great thing to include in our newsletter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You girls are so talented.
I love it.
Throw the book. It's delicious. So here's the verdict, guys. Here it is. Here it is in all of its glory. I think I said this before, and I'm tremendously surprised that I loved reading this magazine. I am not going to lie. It is solid, and I can't believe how solid it is. I endorse this publication 94%, which is a very
That's a solid A.
solid methodology.
But
in
true
assigning
false,
that.
would you endorse this?
That's in
maybe
the
not.
that's
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
6%.
see? Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
You can't.
So definitely not. And ultimately, despite the infrequent missteps in messaging, I think that Brio magazine is surely a fantastic alternative to the other magazines out there right now geared towards teen girls, except maybe Tiger Beat. I loved that one. I loved the NSYNC posters.
Oh, man.
I'm just kidding. That was like male objectification. It was awful.
Oh, yes. Yes.
But my admonition to you moms out there, if you truly do want to check this out for your kids, maybe save them the emotional baggage that they'll carry later, and don't present Brio magazine as the quote unquote must read because you have no other choice.
Yeah.
I would suggest having them read it because it's good, not because the other publications are so bad and so evil.
And what I might also suggest is maybe presenting this as the cultural, and I'm not a mom, so this might come off as not actually useful at all, but this is more of a cultural experience of how we live as young women. But then a publication like Higher Things, using that as a magazine geared for young people for Lutheran theology and using that as the teaching tool. And to not get your theology from Brio, because you won't.
And just knowing the difference.
Yes.
That's a good, excellent point.
We should say, for moms of sons out there, so sorry. It looks like Breakaway was not brought back. The male version, there was not enough interest to bring that back. But maybe they will at some point in the future. I never read Breakaway because it wasn't for me. But I understand that a lot of families subscribed.
We could cure toxic masculinity by bringing it back, I bet.
No doubt.
Undoubtedly so. Anyway, that's all I got. That was like a 20-minute episode, but it was fun. I really enjoyed this. And if I had kids, I would get it for my kids, this subscription to Brio magazine.
And the name is awesome, too.
Yeah, it is. My name's in it.
Brie.
Brio!
Oh!
Brio! Love it. That's it.
This has been a fun exposition through Lutheran/Christian 90s culture. We'll have to do this again with another facet.
I love it.
Maybe just because we like being nostalgic about 90s childhood.
Yes.
It's kind of fun.
Frog bracelets.
Oh! I have so many frogs, probably because I was a 90s kid.
Fully rely on
God. Yes.
Mm.
I have, too many frogs. I just got rid of some. Anyway, tangent. So yes, this has been super fun, ladies. If you have your own experiences of Lutheran/Christian 90s culture, or your own experiences of,
or like even 80s or 70s
even,
or 2000s
Lutheran culture, Lutherans living in,
educate us
in culture. Yes, we'd love to hear your stories. Join us in our Facebook group, the Lutheran Ladies Lounge, and share your thoughts and opinions there. You can also follow us on Facebook at Lutheran Ladies Lounge, and you can tag us in your stories about Lutheran lady content, and we'll throw those in our own stories. You can find all of our podcasts at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on the KFUO radio app, available in either app store or on your favorite podcasting app. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm really not hurt at all that you don't come to me for advice. Not at all.
And I'll come. I promise. I promise I'll come to you advice at some point in the future.
Thanks.
If I go to anybody, I'll go to you.
Yes.
KFUO Radio and the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast are underwritten in part by Ad Crucem. Visit them online at adcrucem.com. Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Join our community on Facebook in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge.